Were there moments during that whole process that you just doubted that things were going to work out, or even doubted your faith?
Well, I mean, there was after one of the hearings, there was a mob of people that attacked me,
Wow.
and one of the security officers of the U.S. Embassy. They had sticks and machetes, and there was rocks flying by my head.
Wow.
Me and the RSO from the embassy barricaded ourselves into a gymnasium, kicked through a wall. And, it wasn't until they phoned very high up people in the Nicaraguan government that they actually, the police brought in reinforcements. And and they took me back to jail, and I was actually relieved to be back in a cell at that point.
Wow.
But there was government-sponsored violence against me. I was tortured. They withheld food. There's the chapter in the book that describes kind of the prison experience is called The Waiting Room to Hell. Yeah. And it's really kind of after a year of writing and working and living with the story, it was really the only words that for me could even get close to describing what it was like.
Wow. And what is something you grab? I mean, I remember you talking about as soon as you get to prison, you realize that everything you have to negotiate for, you have to deal with, you sort of have to barter with people for everything, and you felt at a significant disadvantage because you didn't have anything.
Yeah, and prisons in Nicaragua are not like they are here in the United States. I mean, prison is deadly anywhere, but down there isn't kind of a culture of rehabilitation. It's kind of a self-governing population. They kind of just throw you in and shut the door, and that's kind of how things roll. So there is a multi-layered economy. There's not enough food provided by the prison authorities. Wow. You have to barter. Everybody has cash. There's weapons. Of course, the authorities only kind of enforce the laws with me as the American. So what I did is I had my attorney, and I worked out kind of a deal with my cellmate, who ended up not being, that bad of a guy. Right. And we became cigarette distributors. I don't smoke. I hate cigarettes. But we were able to trade cigarettes for, certain kind of provisions, limes as a disinfectant, coffee, which helps you kind of, deal with the hunger and things like that.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. Well, and now that you are a year later, a little over a year, your sentence was overturned, largely to the work of people kind of really putting pressure on this, a lot by your mother.
That's right.
I would imagine you give thanks for that.
She is a true agent of grace. Yes, she is.
Say a little bit about what it, as far as you can tell, it was like for her during that year.
Well, I think for a lot of my family and friends, they were in prison alongside me in a lot of ways. Yeah. And, I think in a lot of ways, it was harder for them. At least I knew what I was up against on a day-to-day basis. Anytime the phone rang, they thought, is this the phone call informing us that Eric has been murdered in prison? Sure. Or, he's disappeared. It was excruciatingly, the anxiety and just the fear for them was really hard to deal with. Were
they also from thousands of miles away trying to, get witnesses and gather evidence up to have this overturned and all?
I mean, how can you do that? Here's a civilian family. Right. It's not like there's a formula in place for, pulling a private citizen out of a geopolitical tangle. Mm-hmm. My family, my mother, again, she's Hispanic, but we still face language barriers, political and legal system deficiencies. The infrastructure isn't the same down there. Mm-hmm. I mean, but they did a great job. And now, since I've been released, I've been learning about other cases. And, when I look at the way that some of the other families and defense teams are handling some of the other cases, it makes me really proud of my mother and the work they did.
Our guest is Eric Volz. He's the author of Gringo Nightmare, a young American framed for murder in Nicaragua. And this incident happened to you about 4 years ago. And perhaps your memoir will move some people to action. And we know that, unfortunately, you are not the only person of American or really any other descent or other nationality that is being held unjustly in any number of countries around the world. Right now, a lot of attention to 3 hikers in Iran, right?
That's
Tell
correct.
us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, there's 3 American citizens who have been wrongfully detained in Iran. They haven't received a trial. They haven't been formally charged of any crime. If they had committed a crime, then they should be charged and punished accordingly, but that hasn't happened. Iran is clearly politicizing the case and calling them criminal defendants, and they're not. They're hostages. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the United States doesn't have, a formal relationship with Iran, and, the relationship is getting worse and worse by the day because of kind of the banter that's going back and forth right now. So these kids need a lot of support. There's a rally happening this Friday,
How long
July
have they
30th. Well, this Friday will actually be the 1-year anniversary of their detainment.
So they've been unjustly detained for a year. You said there's a rally on Friday.
There's a rally on Friday here in New York City in front of the permanent mission for Iran for the United Nations.
Okay.
It starts at 12:30. All the information is on their website, freethehikers.org.
You've been through this. If you had words, if somehow they have satellite radio over there, I don't think they probably let them have it. But if you could speak to them, what would you say to those 3 guys?
Well, I actually wrote a piece in the Huffington Post last Tuesday,
Sure.
Directed directly to them. And the most important thing is that they need to keep their morale and dignity up, and know that they're not alone. You know, they're in prison, but the prison is not in them. And God is, you know, He's all you need, and you don't really realize that until He's all you have. So I really pray that, you know, they've had their heart leaned on, and you know, that they know that they're not alone.
And to their families or loved ones, what would you say?
I think they're doing a great job. I think I can relate, and you know, I sympathize with what they're going through. My mother, you know, says prayers for them as well, and all I can say is just for them to keep the faith and continue to do what they're doing. You know, the prayers and the movement, you know, ultimately in my case really is what eventually helped to reach a tipping point. You know, it does help. A lot of people think, well, you know, what can I do? But this case has everything to do with you. I mean, by the end of my imprisonment, the State Department was answering the phone asking if this is involving the Eric Volz case. If the answer was yes, they would forward the caller directly to the Nicaraguan embassy.
Wow.
And, you know, supporters outraged were able to crash the Nicaraguan embassy's email servers due to such a high volume of emails. So something I'm very proud of.
Sure.
So no, it does help. I mean, you can shut down a government. You can make it become such a liability that everyone involved, you know, the best thing to do is just let them go.
Right. 4 years later, does this feel like this will be a life's work for you, calling for justice around the world?
Well, the book's only been out 3 months. You know, I'm still learning what it means to reclaim a free life. You know, I don't know. I'm really, you know, praying a lot and hoping that God will really kind of clearly lay forward for me where He wants to go next.
Well, in the case of the 3 hikers that are unjustly detained in Iran, if our listeners are wondering now, what can I do? Then go to freethehikers.org, and there's calls to action there in terms of some of the things. We can crash some email servers.
We can.
Sure, that's one way to go. And on your blog, friendsoferickvolz.com, which actually was a website that was started when you were still in captivity by your friends.
In my mother's kitchen.
In your mother's kitchen. So you can do websites anywhere these days. Right. Very convenient. And there's a link to that on our Facebook page, facebook.com/BustedHaloShow. But you bring a lot of attention to other similar cases so that people can, even as you're saying, from their kitchen, from their BlackBerry, they can make a difference and potentially bring justice to people around the world. And I think your case is a great witness to that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And prayer's probably important too.
Well, you know, there were times when you know, I was at the edge of despair. You know, I thought I was going to die. I had no energy. And there would be miraculous waves of strength that would wash over me. And, you know, the only explanation that I can have for that is that the Holy Spirit was responding to, you know, the prayers that were happening. And I would visualize kind of these prayer bombs coming from around the world and falling on the prison.
Wow.
You know, but, you know, I mean, there's a lot of spiritual warfare that I think really kind of tends to, you know, get magnetized and attracted to these cases because there's so much good and evil involved.
Right. So prayer bombs. Let's get some prayer bombs.
Some prayer bombs,
free
folks.
some people.
That's right.
I could say that's a good website. You could have that.
Prayer bombs. I'll let you guys do that one.
Eric Volz, thanks so much for sharing your story.
My pleasure.
For being on the Busted Halo Show. God bless you. And I notice, you know, at least in terms of my own life's vocation, that sometimes the phoenix comes from the ashes, and we realize what God has for us to do. So whatever God has in mind, God bless you for that.
Well, I'll pray for our leaders.
Yes. Well, that's a good idea, too. 888-3-Catholic. The rally is on Friday. Freethehikers.org. 1 year they've been unjustly detained in Iran. And tell us where it is again, the rally?
It's
here in New York
City in front of the Iran's permanent mission to the United Nations.
We'll check out the website as well. And the book is Gringo Nightmare, a young American framed for murder in Nicaragua. A fascinating, compelling, and moving read. So thank you, Eric Volz.
Thank you.